So we've got an absolutely beautiful reef aquarium here that has been regularly or recently re-established. And we'll just go through and have a talk about some of the things that's going on. As far as the corals are concerned, the corals are really looking good. There's nothing besides the odd coral that's fallen off, because you've got to watch fish like wrasses that come and push the corals over. When you see corals on the ground like that, you've really got to pick them up as fast as you can, otherwise you are risking losing them. And then if you can't find a nice secure place for them, then you do actually have to glue them. So that's something to be aware of. Now, so the first thing I'll talk about is surface agitation. This tank has very good surface agitation. So the very first thing, this tank gets a good tick because the surface agitation is excellent. Now this particular wave maker here is on a constant flow. I would rather see that ramp up and then ramp down. I'd like to see that vary a little bit more. Now there was some concerns about dead spots, so we might actually just put another pump in the corner and angle it this way. I don't think that's heaps important, but I'm certainly not against it. Also, just being aware that different corals require different amounts of water flow. So if there's a lot of water flow here, then this is obviously where you're going to put your higher water flow corals. But then other corals don't need so much water flow. So in this area, if we put corellas, fluffies, recordias, zonanthus, and various things that don't need as much water flow can actually populate this area. So not everything has to be super high water flow. But in general, if your aquarium has about 20 times an hour water flow, then that's enough. But once again, the most important thing is this surface agitation, which this tank definitely gets a tick for. And the next thing to just be aware of is what's called kinetic energy. So the kinetic energy is when the movement of the water creates the movement of the water. So this tank is quite good because you've got all your flow going that way, which means you're going to have kinetic energy. If you had half the flow on that side and half the flow on that side, then what happens is the energy neutralizes themselves, and therefore you lose a lot of kinetic energy because you're using energy to neutralize energy. So that's another tick this tank gets. Now the tank is also set up very nicely in reference to photosynthetic surface area. So what we don't want is super steep reefs, so therefore the corals aren't getting good access to the light. Whereas here, it's all stepping back very nicely. And then we do need to be very aware of the way we're positioning the corals. So if we have a reef that's too steep, and we have corals facing this way, but actually the lights are up there, that's not so good. We really want to have corals facing this way, so you can see them, but at the same time they're also getting light. So we don't want them like that, or we can't enjoy them properly. We don't want them like that, because they can't get the light properly. But like this is beautiful. So the shape that this reef is actually very good. It's also got quite a lot of personality, this reef. It has a lot of swim-throughs, a lot of caves, a lot of interesting points. So that's very good. Also be aware with your scaping to try to group your corals, which really this is doing a fairly good job. You put your gonies in one area, you put your alveopora with them, you might put your euphyllias in another area, and that allows you to have more coral with less competition. Because if you go mixing your corals everywhere, then what tends to happen is you have more trouble with the corals. Be careful of little worms that are in the aquarium. So various wrasse and various hawkfish and so forth are quite good for eating the little worms. But anytime you see like a little worm, like a bristleworm or whatever, you really want to try to get it out. So just get your claw, pull it out, because we want to try not to have the tank overrun by bristleworms, because they sting the shit out of your hands when you're dumb enough to touch a live rock, like I always do. And we really don't want those little worms overrunning the tank. So whatever we can do to get rid of those worms is something that I'm a big fan of. And trying to have scavengers that are going to help eat those little pests is something that I'm very interested in. And there's various traps and so forth available that you can use for removing them. This guy loves knocking stuff over. The corals really don't like being covered in sand. Another thing that I love cleaner shrimp. I just righted that and he already came and knocked it over straight away. Cleaner shrimp are one of the best things you can have for a reef tank. Now what a cleaner shrimp does is actually go on your fish and remove any pathogens, and they'll also remove pathogens out of the environment, because when the dinoflagellate phase of the pathogen is there, the cleaner shrimp will do a very good job and clean them all up before they attach onto the fish, and will help to clean them off the fish. So I'm a very big fan of cleaner shrimp, but you do need to be careful when adding cleaner shrimp with predators like wrasse or hawkfish, because cleaner shrimp in Australia are actually very expensive. For example, in Fiji, you just walk into the water and there's cleaner shrimp literally in the shallows, but that's not the case for us in Australia, where in some countries you go and look at the price of a cleaner shrimp, they're very cheap because acquiring them is very cheap. Whereas in Australia, we can't import invertebrates, so we get our cleaner shrimp from the Coral Sea. So the suppliers need to, there's dosing there. Whoa, that's the auto top up. Yep. So the suppliers have to take their big 80-foot boat, a 5 or 6 8-hour journey out into the Coral Sea, and then they're found down at about 45 meters, which means that they send a team of divers, and they've only got 5 minutes of bottom time. So they send 15 divers or whatever down. They only get 5 minutes to look for shrimp. Then they have to come back up again. And then the shrimp actually take days to come up because they can only bring them up 5 meters a day. So what's involved with getting cleaner shrimp in Australia is actually quite extreme. So therefore the price of a cleaner shrimp is very extreme. But I will say they're one of my favorite animals. They live for sort of 2 or 3 years normally. They don't live forever. But look at this guy. He's like doing his best to just knock shit over. But I love their little personalities, the cleaner shrimps. And I love the fact that they help to reduce my pathogens. So they reduce the chance of white spot, and they're wonderful just general cleaners for the aquarium as well. This guy's very entertaining, besides the fact that he's causing trouble with all the corals, knocking them all over. When you get a fish that you need to get out of the aquarium, such as Bozo here, one of the first things that I'll do is I'll get the sea chem nets. Now, I don't know why, but I catch the fish so easily with the sea chem nets. They're very deep and they seem to have no drag. So the first thing I do if I want that fish, I put a net there, a net there, and a net there, and just leave them in there. Leave them there for a day, and I don't even try to catch the fish. And I just get the fish used to the net. Then what I'll do is grab one of the nets, put a bit of food in. Then when the fish run up to get the food, I grab my net. I try to catch all the fish. Don't try to catch one, because they get real smart. When they think that you're after them, they just go and hide. So I have a crack at it. And then the other thing I'll do is, if I'm sitting here relaxing, watching my fish, and I've got my sea chem net with the big deep net, and if I see that fish go near the net, I might go and quickly grab him. Otherwise, the other thing I do sometimes put a bit of food in the net. And once again, if you let the net sit there all day, they get used to the net. And then you put a bit of food in, and then you get a chance to grab them. And there's various traps that you can have varying success with. So it's definitely worth trying some of the traps. And some of the new traps too are the magnet and the trap. And then you pull the magnet off and then the trap floats up like that. And depending on the fish, then that's an option. But catching this wrasse, I think he'll be quite a adventure. So some fish are just so damn fast and so damn smart. And I'm going to say this guy's going to be one of those. And in extreme cases, then what I actually do is a spring clean. And what I do for a spring clean is I get some foam boxes laid out, put some water from the tank into the foam boxes, get my corals, put them into the foam boxes, get some dry foam boxes, put the rock into the foam boxes, because there has been times when I need to get a fish out and I literally can't get it out. And in an extreme circumstance, I literally pull everything out. I give the tank a good spring clean, because spring cleaning is something I'm a big fan of too. So let's say once a year or even every couple of years, I'm a big fan of a spring clean. And you can do a half spring clean, that one or that one. For example, just do that one, get it out, vacuum the all underneath it, put it all in different. I'm a big fan of change. Now the way this tank's set up is sort of ideal because there's a lot of swim throughs and a lot of the sand is accessible. And things like sand sifting stars, strom shells, and all these other things are going to help stir the sand. What I don't want is lots of big rocks with lots of contact on the bottom. That's how you end up going anoxic, and that's how you end up having old tank syndrome and problems with hydrogen sulfide. So the way this tank's set up, because there's only certain points on the bottom and there's lots of access to just sand, this is rarely going to have a problem because of the way the rocks are set up. But if there was lots of rocks touching the bottom, there's more problems in the long run with old tank syndrome and hydrogen sulfide. So a spring clean is something that I love to do if possible once a year. I'm a big fan of that. And I even do a spring clean of my filter once a year where I pull everything out, give it all a clean and put it back in again. Because I hate it when you've got a tank that goes for literally years and the crap is building up so badly that it's leaching out hydrogen sulfide.